Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today is an exciting one for me. I've wanted to make over this jewelry box for a very long time and I finally decided to do so. This jewelry box was my grandmother's. It's not an antique, it's just made to look like one. But I was afraid to change it for the longest time because it was hers. But then I figured she used to be a DIY queen herself. She was very crafty and I don't think she would be too upset as long as I keep the box itself and continue using it. And it still reminds me of her every time I look at it. This is the first piece of furniture that I've made over that I actually did some research beforehand. It is a laminate piece and of course needs to be prepped and primed properly because of the shiny, almost plastic-like veneer that we are painting over. It does not paint like real wood. That being said, I'm not a professional, but I will explain the products and methods I used and why. I'm first going to remove the legs and any hardware on the outside of the jewelry box. All the handles, we will be replacing those, all the hinges and pulls on the side we will be painting to match the new knobs. I first quickly sanded every surface using a 100 grit sandpaper and filled in those small holes on the front of the drawers with wood filler. I wiped down all of my sanded surfaces with a damp cloth to remove any debris before painting. I wanted to be sure not to oversand, but essentially wanted to remove that shiny surface, rough it up a bit, and give the paint something to hold on to. In my research, I found that using a shellac-based primer is good for stained or laminate furniture as it kind of seals in what's underneath and prevents it from bleeding to the surface. So I chose to use the Ben shellac-based primer, which was highly recommended in almost every source I found prior to my project. I chose to use a small foam roller on larger surfaces and a foam paintbrush on smaller surfaces. I chose to use them because they were disposable and none of the paint that I will be using is water-based, meaning I can't just run the brushes under the sink and rinse them out for another use. Before going in with my second coat of primer, I made sure to lightly sand in between coats to smooth out the surface and remove any beads of paint that I missed, then wiped away any debris with a dry cloth. While waiting on the primer to dry, I spray painted the side pulls and magnets a matte black to match the drawer pulls. Finally, moving on to painting, I went in with the Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch Ultra Cover Latex Paint in flat white. I use the latex paint because it works well with the shellac primer, works really well on wood, and dries quickly. I was really trying to get this primed and painted in one day. I did wait roughly 3 hours before applying the second coat of paint. For the legs, I chose to stain them with Minwax wood stain and special walnut. I love the walnut color stains from mid-century wood furniture, and I think it was the right choice. I was torn between leaving them natural or staining them. So I used a rag to apply the stain and wiped away the excess. I purchased the legs on Etsy from an incredible store called Treasures TR. I'll leave a link to the store below. They sent a handwritten note explaining that the legs were made from beechwood, which results in shortcomings environmentally, so they plant a tree on my behalf in Turkey. I just think the whole experience was amazing. Highly recommend them. The legs came with special plates that make them slant outward, so I lined them up and attached them onto the underside of the bottom board with 3/4 inch screws. I did opt to hand screw them in as it was fairly easy to do so. You can drill them in, but I would recommend drilling a pilot hole beforehand to avoid cracking. I allowed the paint to fully dry overnight, and the next day I removed all the painter's tape, reattached all the hardware, put new knobs on the front of the drawers, and attached the legs.